Have you ever looked back on a decision in your life and thought, if someone had just explained this to me earlier, I would have done things very differently? That's exactly how many people feel after the divorce is finalized. Not because they made emotional mistakes, not because they were unreasonable people, but because no one explained how divorce and mortgage lending actually work together. And unfortunately, those two worlds don't always align. I've seen couples do everything right. They used mediation, they stayed respectful, they worked hard to avoid court battles, they agreed on the house, agreed on support, agreed on timelines. Everyone thought the plan made sense until someone tried to refinance the mortgage. And suddenly, the agreement that looked perfectly fair on paper completely fell apart. And by then, the divorce was already finalized. That's the part that keeps me up at night for people. Because once certain agreements are signed, there may not be an easy fix. That's why I wanted to create this series, because I truly believe people deserve better information before they make permanent financial decisions during their divorce. And honestly, I wish someone would have explained these things to me years ago before I went through my own divorce. So if you're currently going through a divorce, thinking about divorce, or even supporting someone through one, stay with me until the end of this video, because understanding how the marital home works during divorce could completely change the outcome of your financial future. I'm Tammy Wallensack, a divorce mortgage specialist with over 30 years experience, and I'm here to help you make smart home decisions while you're navigating your divorce. I'm so glad you're here. And one of the biggest misconceptions I see over and over again is this. People assume that if something is written into the divorce agreement, the mortgage company has to honor it. They don't. And that misunderstanding alone has caused so much financial stress for people after divorce. So today I want to walk you through why this happens, the biggest mistakes I see, what questions people should be asking before signing agreements, and how to protect yourself from decisions that may sound good emotionally but create financial problems later. One of the first things I explain to clients is this: your divorce agreement and mortgages are not the same thing. Your divorce agreement's a legal agreement between you, your spouse, and the court. But your mortgage, that's a completely separate contract with the lender. And lenders are not required to follow the terms of your divorce decree. That surprises people all the time. I'll hear things like, but the judge ordered him to refinance, or she was awarded the house, or our attorney said I'll just assume the mortgage. And I understand why people think that means everything is settled. But mortgage lending has its own rules, its own guidelines, and its own qualifying requirements. So sometimes people finalize an agreement believing a refinance will happen, and then they find out later that the person keeping the home doesn't qualify. That's where things can become incredibly painful, because now emotions are high, the divorce is done, and people feel trapped. And honestly, I completely understand why the house becomes emotional. It's not just a property. It's where your kids took their first steps, where holidays happened, where routines were built, where life happened. Sometimes it feels like letting go of the house means letting go of the life that you thought you were going to have. And I say this gently because I've lived through divorce myself. When people are emotionally overwhelmed, exhausted, scared, and grieving, it becomes very difficult to make clear long-term financial decisions. That's human. And during divorce, people are often making the largest financial decisions of their life during the hardest emotional season of their life, and why education really matters so much. Not fear, not pressure, not shame, education. Because sometimes people can keep the house successfully, and sometimes keeping the house creates financial stress that follows them for years. The key is understanding the difference before agreements are signed. So let's talk about some of the most common mistakes I see. And if any of these sound familiar, please know you're absolutely not alone. These situations happen every single day. This is probably one of the most common situations I see. A couple divorces, but they decide to stay on the mortgage together temporarily. Usually the reasoning sounds something like, we'll deal with it later. Rates are just too high. We're trying to keep things stable for the kid. He'll refinance eventually. She'll assume the loan later. And while I understand the intention, people often underestimate long-term risk, because remaining on a mortgage means you're still legally liable for that debt. Even if you've moved out, your ex is making the payments, or the divorce agreement says otherwise. And what many people don't realize is that staying on the mortgage can impact your future buying power, your debt-to-income ratios, credit exposure, qualifying for another home, and financial flexibility later. I've seen people years later still financially tied together because the mortgage issue was never fully resolved. And that can create tremendous stress. Another major misunderstanding involves support income. People often believe if I'm receiving support, I'll automatically qualify for the home. But mortgage guidelines are specific. Typically, lenders want to see documented receipt, consistency, and continuance of that income. So if someone signs an agreement believing support will immediately solve qualification issues, that may not actually happen. And again, this isn't about being unfair. It's simply how underwriting works. That's why planning ahead matters so much. Mistake number 3, waiting until after the divorce. This one is huge. So many people wait until after the divorce is finalized to explore their mortgage options. And by then, some of the best planning opportunities may already be gone. I always say the time to understand your options is before the final agreement signed, not after. Because once paperwork is finalized, changing the terms later can become much harder emotionally, legally, and financially. People sometimes ask me why I am so passionate about this specific niche. And the truth is, part of it comes from my own life experience. When I went through my own divorce, I realized how many things people simply don't understand until they're already inside the process. You're trying to survive emotionally, protect your children, figure out finances, make massive life decisions. And at the same time, there's pressure to move quickly. I remember thinking, why doesn't anyone explain these things before people sign agreements? That question stayed with me, and over time it became part of my mission because I've seen how one financial misunderstanding during divorce can affect someone for years after. And I never want people making permanent decisions simply because they didn't have the right information available to them. And that's why I care so deeply about education, not selling, not pressure, but clarity. This may be one of the most important things I say in this entire video. Sometimes the better question is not, can I keep the house? Sometimes the better question is, should I? And those are very different conversations because technically qualifying for a home and comfortably affording a home are not always the same thing. I've seen people become house rich, cash poor, emotionally exhausted, and financially trapped, trying to hold on to something that no longer fit their financial reality. And I say this with compassion because there's no shame in selling a home and rebuilding differently. Sometimes peace matters more than keeping the property. Sometimes freedom matters more. Sometimes stability matters more. And sometimes keeping the house absolutely is the right decision. But that decision should come from clarity, not fear. If you're early in the process, here are some of the things that I strongly encourage people to do. Number 1, understand your mortgage options early. Number 2, pull your credit and understand where you stand. Number 3, understand what income can actually be used for qualification. Number 4, look realistically at affordability after divorce. And the 5th one, please do not assume the settlement automatically solves the mortgage side. It may not. And getting clarity early can save people money, stress, conflict, and years of regret later. If this video helped you, I created resources specifically for people navigating these decisions. I have an ebook called Can I Keep the House? This walks through many of the questions people don't even realize they should be asking during divorce. And if you want guidance specific to your situation, you can also schedule time with me directly. Both links are below in the description. And if this content's helping you, please subscribe to the channel because this series is going to cover refinancing after divorce, mortgage assumptions, support income, credit, equity buyouts, buying before the divorce is final, and many of the mistakes people don't discover until it's too late. I want to leave you with this. A divorce doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it simply means life changed. And while the process can feel incredibly overwhelming, this season of your life does not define your future. You're still allowed to rebuild, you're still allowed to heal, still allowed to create stability again. And my hope is that this channel helps people move through divorce with more clarity, more confidence, and fewer financial mistakes. Thanks so much for being here. I'll see you in the next video.